Imagine a world of endless warfare where 7 states battle for supremacy. This was China's warring states period, a time of chaos that demanded radical solutions. From this crucible emerged a philosophy so ruthless it would terrify emperors for centuries. While Confucius preached benevolence and Mozi advocated universal love, a different school of thought was taking shape. The legalists believed human nature was inherently selfish and only strict laws could maintain order. Their ideas would find their ultimate expression in one man. Han Feizi was born around 280 BCE into the royal family of the Han state. A brilliant but stuttering scholar, he turned his weakness into strength through writing. His works would become the definitive texts of legalist philosophy. Han Feizi studied under the Confucian master Zunzi, who believed human nature was evil and needed education. But Han Feizi took this further. If people were inherently bad, why educate them? Better to control them with laws and punishments. Legalist philosophy rested on 3 pillars: Fa, Shu, and Shi. Fa meant law, clear, public rules applied equally to all. Shu referred to statecraft techniques for controlling officials. Shi was authority, the ruler's power position that compelled obedience. Han Feizi argued that laws must be harsh but predictable. Rewards should be generous so people desire them. Punishments should be severe so people fear them. This carrot-and-stick approach would become the blueprint for authoritarian rule. For controlling officials, Han Feizi developed sophisticated techniques. Officials should be kept in mutual suspicion, their duties divided to prevent consolidation of power. The ruler must remain mysterious, never revealing true intentions. Han Feizi's most famous analogy was the 2 handles of power, punishment and reward. Like a skilled rider controlling a horse with whip and carrot, the ruler must master both. But the whip, he argued, was more important than the carrot. What made Han Feizi truly dangerous was his rejection of morality in governance. He mocked Confucian virtue as useless against real threats. A child's filial piety doesn't prevent his parents from being disorderly, he wrote. Han Feizi saved his sharpest criticism for his own state of Han. He wrote memorials warning that weak laws and corrupt officials were destroying the kingdom. But the Han king, offended by his bluntness, ignored his advice. Frustrated at home, Han Feizi's writings found an eager reader elsewhere. The ambitious king of Qin, Ying Zheng, who would become China's first emperor, devoured Han Feizi's works. He reportedly exclaimed, "If I could meet this man, I would die without regret." The Qin king was so impressed he attacked Han specifically to capture Han Feizi. In 234 BCE, with Qin armies at the gates, the Han king finally sent his brilliant subject as an envoy to Qin. It was a decision with fatal consequences. In Qin, Han Feizi finally met his admirer. The 2 brilliant minds discussed statecraft for days, but Han Feizi's former classmate, the Qin chancellor Li Si, grew jealous. He feared Han Feizi would replace him as the king's chief advisor. Li Si conspired against Han Feizi, telling the king, "Han Feizi is a prince of Han. His loyalty will always be to Han, not Qin." He suggested imprisoning Han Feizi to test his loyalty, knowing the test would be fatal. Imprisoned and desperate, Han Feizi wrote appeals to the king, but Li Si intercepted them. He then sent poison to Han Feizi's cell, claiming it was the king's order. In 233 BCE, one of China's greatest political thinkers died by forced suicide. The tragic irony, after Han Feizi's death, the Qin king adopted his ideas completely. Legalism became state policy as Qin conquered all rival states. In 221 BCE, China was unified under Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. Qin Shi Huang implemented Han Feizi's system ruthlessly. Standardized laws applied to all. Officials were controlled through mutual surveillance. Books criticizing legalism were burned. Scholars who disagreed were buried alive. But Han Feizi's system contained a fatal flaw he himself had identified. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Qin laws became increasingly cruel. The empire that took 500 years to build collapsed just 14 years after unification. Later dynasties publicly rejected legalism, but secretly used its techniques. Han Dynasty emperors adopted Confucianism as official ideology, but kept legalist methods for control. This became China's governing template for 2,000 years. Why compare Han Feizi to Machiavelli? Both wrote practical guides to power rather than idealistic theories. Both believed ends justified means. But Han Feizi was more systematic, and 1,800 years earlier. Han Feizi's influence extended beyond China. Japanese shoguns, Korean kings, and even modern authoritarian regimes have used legalist principles. His ideas about law as tool of control remain relevant in political theory today. But Han Feizi's legacy is deeply controversial. Was he a brilliant realist who understood power's nature, or a dangerous thinker who justified tyranny? Even today, scholars debate whether to admire his insight or condemn his amorality. Consider this paradox. Han Feizi believed strong laws protected the people from arbitrary rule, yet his system enabled some of history's worst tyrannies. Can law exist without morality? Han Feizi said yes, with terrifying consequences. Han Feizi's personal tragedy reflects his philosophy's cold logic. He was eliminated by the very techniques he advocated. Li Si used statecraft, Shu, to remove a rival. The system consumed its creator. What survives today? 55 chapters of brilliant, ruthless political analysis. The Han Feizi text remains essential reading for understanding Chinese governance. It's studied not as moral guide, but as map of power's dark geography. Han Feizi's most enduring insight might be this: systems matter more than individuals. Good people in bad systems produce bad outcomes, but his solution, absolute control, proved equally dangerous. The first emperor who admired Han Feizi met a fitting end. Paranoid about death, he sought immortality potions containing mercury. He likely died from mercury poisoning, poisoned by his own fear, just as he poisoned Han Feizi. Later Chinese historians condemned legalism, but couldn't escape its influence. Every dynasty faced Han Feizi's dilemma: how to maintain order without becoming tyrannical. None found a perfect answer. In the West, Machiavelli is often misunderstood as purely cynical, but he believed strong states protected citizens. Han Feizi went further. He saw the state as an end in itself, with people as means to that end. Han Feizi's story raises uncomfortable questions about political realism. If human nature is selfish, must governance be ruthless, or can better systems channel self-interest toward common good? These questions remain urgent today. The ultimate tragedy of Han Feizi: his ideas worked too well. They created China's first unified empire, but made it unsustainable. They gave rulers absolute power, but ensured their paranoia. They solved immediate problems, but created worse ones. What can we learn from Han Feizi? Perhaps that understanding power is different from wielding it wisely. That systems need both control and flexibility. That even the most brilliant political theory becomes dangerous when divorced from humanity. Han Feizi's ghost haunts political philosophy. Whenever leaders choose control over consent, punishment over persuasion, secrecy over transparency, they walk the path he mapped. The question is, where does that path ultimately lead? He died in prison, poisoned by a jealous rival, but his ideas shaped an empire that lasted millennia. Han Feizi, the stuttering prince who couldn't save his own state, but whose words terrified emperors for centuries. Next time on The Oriental Orator, we explore Sun Tzu's art of war, but not the version you think you know. The real Sun Tzu was more philosopher than general, and his teachings have been misunderstood for centuries. Subscribe so you don't miss it.